Great, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. Sure, this has been a great day across all the tracks and sessions that we've run. We and our partners hosted close to 100 sessions with over 225 speakers today. We've had over 25,000 views and counting of the various sessions across platforms including Zoom and YouTube. I just want to acknowledge that this would just have been impossible without the support and encouragement we've received from so many partners in the development ecosystem. So thank you so much for that. Let's get started with today's session. The plenary is Kal, Aaj aur Kal. It's going to be a freewheeling discussion with the leaders of some of India's biggest nonprofits on the impact of COVID on their strategies, as well as how they are responding to it. Joining us today evening are Madhav Chavan, Safina Hussain, Matthew Spacey, and Sridhar Venkat. And we have Ujjwal Thakur guiding conversations with him. In his over 4 decades of work experience, Ujjwal has held several senior management positions at leading banks, including Standard Chartered Bank, BNP Paribas, and Times Bank. After moving from the corporate sector, he also served as the CEO of Pratham and Give India. Currently, Ujjwal is advisor to PwC in their BFSI practice and serves on the board of Educate Girls and several other nonprofits. Welcome, Ujjwal, and over to you to introduce and moderate the session. Ujjwal, you're on.
Hello? No, I'm not on mute from here.
Yeah, Ujjwal.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah? So should I go on?
Please do.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for that generous introduction, and welcome all to this plenary session, Kal, Aaj aur Kal. The Aaj I'm referring to in the title is the world we live in today, completely overtaken by what seems to be a definite black swan event. The COVID virus infection of the planet that threatens to substantially alter the world as we've known it. Quite rightly, it has grabbed the attention of governments, markets, and the community, and brought most non-COVID related activities to a grinding halt. One unfortunate consequence of this is going to be the reversal of one of the most positive trends of recent times. Large swathes of humanity getting out of poverty to lead a life of relative dignity. What's worse is that it will accelerate the slippage back into poverty of millions who are transcended. Aligned to that is the recognition is the fact that none of the societal problems, and especially the problems that created and sustained poverty that existed pre-COVID, would have disappeared. In fact, they would be accentuated and might need even greater attention in the after-COVID era. Solutions to the big challenges of education, livelihoods, hunger, gender, and youth will need to be solved at a scale bigger than ever before, as millions more slip into poverty. After governments, NGOs are perhaps the most important warriors in fighting this battle of poverty. The twin problems caused by the lockdown and the economic slowdown have impacted on the NGO world perhaps even more than they have on the business sector. Unlike the business sector, which has lobbying muscle, the NGO space is almost voiceless. Given their critical role in rehabilitating the universe in the post-COVID era, the world needs them to be heard, they need to survive, and they need to be healthy. Charcha 2020 is a forum that can help this voice being heard by the right ears in government, Niti Aayog, and industry. To express that voice and help all of us think through the solutions, I have a panel of perhaps the most eminent practitioners, social entrepreneurs, and professionals who have devoted their life to tackling poverty and making India more equitable. Please join me in welcoming India's impact billionaires, Safina Hussain, Matthew Spacey, Sridhar Venkat, and Madhav Chavan to this discussion. I'm going to request them to talk to you about the Kal, Aaj aur Kal of their life, where they were on the journey when COVID struck, the big problem that kept them awake, the things that excited them about their work, and what was their reaction when COVID struck? When did they realize that the world is going to be different from tomorrow? And then how they reacted to it, how they got all their constituencies involved, and how they brought relief, and how they planned the rehabilitation post-COVID. I'm sure it's going to be a great learning experience for all the audience, because this is the galaxy of rock stars of the sector. Without further ado, let me invite Safina Hussain, the founder of Educate Girls, to take on. Safina is the founder of Educate Girls. She's worked extensively with rural and urban underserved communities in South America, Africa, Asia, on a cause that is closest to her heart: education, girls' education. Safina's efforts to bridge the gender gap in education in India have been widely recognized. She has been conferred with the Niti Aayog Women Transforming Award, the L'Oreal Award, the Skoll Award, the Wise Awards, and multiple other awards. As I keep joking with her, she is one of the people who will probably take me to Oslo for the Nobel presentation someday in the future. So she's also tackling one of the most vulnerable areas in the post-COVID era. So it's over to you, Safina.
Thank you, Ujjwal, for that lovely introduction. And definitely, I'm not even able to go back to Juhu, my house, where forget about Oslo. We're also we're in a village outside during the lockdown. So if my internet is unstable and I go on and off, then Ujjwal, it will be back to you to handle that. But thank you so much. I think this is such an incredible panel. These are all people I've been learning from for my last 12 years that I've been doing this. Everybody who's a role model here that I look up to very much. So I actually just wanted to say, it just seems like such a long time ago. 2 months, that was like the cull, that was just 2 months ago. But really last year, Educate Girls, we have been around for 12 years, and we have grown from a small 50 school project to approximately 17,000 villages. And last year was just, it's such a dream now. Like, we became Asia's first TED Audacious project. We have this huge 5-year plan, this big blue sky vision saying we will take it from 17,000 villages all the way to 35,000 villages. We were raring to go saying, we're going to bring back 1.5 million out of school girls back into school in 5 years. And last year I declared it, growth readiness here. We were investing, we were hiring into tech, data systems, processes, people, an entire new bench of senior leadership. So that's kind of where we were. It was all about go, go, go. And, and then it was COVID, and it was just suddenly, as sudden as it could be, COVID struck. And we were a little bit lucky in terms of the fact that the social sector is so supporting of each other. Immediately as things were happening, Dasra sent us, the protocols that they had developed, red, amber, green, what do you do? What happens if there is a COVID case in your city or in your state? And how should senior leadership really react to that? And we were so grateful for it because it kind of saved us a lot of time. And then the first thing that we did was really a work from home in Mumbai. That was the first place. It was almost 10 days before the government announced. And then, our field teams, they kind of went on a work from home, and we just started to pick up the phone and make sure that everybody was safe and everybody knew what this meant. And because our field teams had never really seen a work from home, we realized that they were really worried. They thought that work from home was a code word for being laid off. And so the level of anxiety that it created on the ground, because they were seeing small nonprofits around them in Madhya Pradesh, Jhabua, Alirajpur, that those community-based organizations overnight told them, go home and we'll call you when we need you. And so the first thing we did was for everybody at Educate Girls who makes either minimum wage or under 20,000 rupees, we immediately released an extra 5,000 rupees to help them deal with the uncertainty and the anxiety. We also made sure through video and through other means that we communicated with each and every person in the organization to kind of tell them that nobody was going to lose their job during the lockdown, that their jobs were safe, and we were going through this that was it. A lot of our immediate safety, a lot of our staff who were during travel, our guest houses were opened up, making sure they all had food, they were safe. If they wanted to go back home, they had means to be able to do that. So I think the first couple of weeks were really focused on making sure that our teams were safe and that they felt a financial cushion. We waived off administrative requirements for getting your salary or attendance, or all of those little things that would have caused them any kind of financial friction and pain. And then we actually set up the first thing. So we had a task force for that. And then we set up a task force simply for relief and for really looking into our communities. We started picking up the phone, talking to parents, talking to headmasters, talking to community members, PRI, seeing what was the situation on the ground and how were they really dealing with it. And now we have a COVID relief task force that is working really hard. We have distributed rations and food to over 42,000 households, about 180,000 individuals in the last few weeks. And this is our phase 1, and we're just planning and then going to start launching our phase 2. So there's relief work happening, there's looking after your teams, but really the impact that we're seeing on the ground of COVID for our women and girls, and that's what I kind of really wanted to focus on. And that's just been really tough to see because girls are out of school because of 2 root causes. I call them the 2 Ps. There's poverty and patriarchy. And COVID is actually making both these Ps much worse. There's poverty that we're seeing. People are losing their livelihoods, their income. Life gets much harder. Access to food is limited. And the second is patriarchy. Women are back to domestic work, caregiving work. Those roles are becoming just so much more gendered. The domestic violence rates going up. There's so many things that we're really, really, really worried about. I just heard of a girl, Seema, from Ajmer district in Rajasthan. And father and brother are at home and they have a mobile phone. And the brother saw her on the mobile phone, got so incensed that she is going to bring dishonor to the family. And she must be doing something off with the access to the mobile phone, that she was shipped off to her husband's house. And it's not an isolated incident. In that village alone, 3 more girls right after Seema's incidents were shipped off to their husband's house. In the areas that we work in, where girls are in any case seen as a liability, this is going to make things much, much, much worse for them. And that's what I'm incredibly, incredibly worried about, is that my poverty and patriarchy is going to be so much worse. And so through relief efforts, through making sure hunger, Sridhar is here, he will also talk about hunger, but in our communities, girls eat last in the house. They eat last and they eat least whatever is left over. So when food is less, they're going to eat even lesser and they're going to be hungrier. So that's our urge that we are dealing with. And we're trying to find ways in which we can really, really, really help girls in this situation. And what is it that we can do to kind of reach out to them? And that's what's really kind of absorbing our mental space at this point. In terms of what happens tomorrow, I think once the immediate relief is kind of taken care of, once we sort of know what this new normal looks like, what will happen once the migrants come back home to the villages? Is it going to be positive for our girls? Is it going to be negative? We don't know yet. And I think that's what we're keeping our ears to the ground to see what is it that we need to be prepared for. And I think in the coming tomorrow, after the way we were kind of talking about it at our board meeting was, let's focus on the defensive right now. What can we protect of our core? Where can we cost cut? Where can we save without really cutting the muscle? You've got to try and trim as much as you can, but you can't get rid of what is really essential and non-negotiable to your impact. So really doing that kind of planning, and that's the defensive side, as I call it. But I think the second part of it is really going to be about the opportunities and really looking deeply, what are the opportunities for our girls that we can leverage at this point? Is it on-demand training? Is it sort of remote counseling? What are those pieces that may be coming up? So I'll kind of leave it at that. This is how we are kind of looking at our kal, aaj, and the kal that is going to come. And we are It will how to be nimbler, faster, and more impactful. And hopefully, really, just like it's making us realize about the plight of the migrants, it will build some empathy for people, for the women and girls who are really going to be the worst sufferers of this particular crisis. And they're going to bear the brunt of the violence, of the hunger, of so many. Their vulnerabilities are going to be much, much, much more enhanced due to this.
Thank you, Safina, for that wonderful presentation. I feel that our girl child is going to be safer with the work that you do. And thanks again very much for the heartfelt way in which you dealt with your constituencies by giving them salaries in advance and things like that. My next speaker for this evening is Sridhar Venkat. We now move from vulnerability of the girl child to vulnerability of everyone, hunger. Sridhar is the CEO of Akshay Patra. He has over 30 years of work experience leading multinationals like Philips, ABB, WebEx Communication, was an Eisenhower Fellow in 2014, has been with Akshay Patra for the last 15 years, started as a volunteer, and then moved on and later became a full-time executive director and is now the CEO of Akshay Patra. He joined Akshay Patra, leaving a very lucrative career in the corporate world because of his search for existential purpose. He quit the corporate sector and now is completely focused on this. Yesterday, when I was chatting with him, he told me this is the only thing that I'm going to do till my dying day. It's hunger that drives him. It's hunger of the children and education that drives him. And talking about Akshay Patra, perhaps the largest organization in this country. But the uniqueness of Akshay Patra to me is that they managed to raise 300 crores out of their 600 crores budget from the government. I don't know of any other NGO in this country which has the muscle to get money out of the government and get money out of the government in a very clean fashion. Over to you, Sridhar.
Thank you, Ujjwal. First of all, I compliment the organizers for putting together such a wonderful session and an excellent theme and a wonderful panel. I look up to all of you. As far as Akshay Patra's call goes, our vision has been no child in India will be deprived of education because of hunger. We started very small in Bangalore with just 1,500 children and 5 schools. Today, we serve about 1.8 million children in over 19,000 government schools across the country, 13 states. Early last year, we finished we commemorated the 3rd billionth meal, and we had the Honorable Prime Minister coming to commemorate it. Akshay Patra is one of the examples of successful public-private partnerships. So as you all know, we have large centralized kitchen infrastructures, right from feeding 10,000 children up to 250,000 children in a period of 6 hours cooked to consumption time. Giving every dream a chance through a hot, nutritious, safe meal is what excites all of us in Akshay Patra. And making sure that we can do this day after day is a challenge. Because every child comes with a hope that he'll get a hot, nutritious, safe, and tasty meal. Then one day, suddenly, COVID or Black Swan, which I learned from this panel, struck the world, and schools suddenly closed down. Now, we had put together a war room. We were reached out by the government at the apex level. And in a span of 2 months, what we did was we activated out of our 52 locations, 52 kitchens, we activated 32 kitchens of Akshay Patra and have served 50 million servings so far, out of which this includes dry ration kits as well as cooked meals, equal proportion. We also ensured that March and April salaries of Akshay Patra, as you know, is a manufacturing NGO, very unique. We produce all 7,300 of us get up in the morning and do one thing. How do we ensure a hot, nutritious, safe meal? So 7,300 people, 10% management staff, rest of our team workers, we ensured that March and April salaries of all of them are paid. Not a single deduction was done. There is one thing which we ensured, and continuous communication was happening between the local leadership and the management, as well as the team members across the country. That's one thing which we did. We also ensured that we work very closely with the government, because the strength of Akshaya Patra is public-private partnership. We are what we are because of the support which we get from the government and the various donors. So we got overwhelming support from the government as well as donors in the form of making sure that the last mile delivery happens properly. Funds are there to make sure that the hungry people are served. We also realized that our focus at this point of time, when the world is dealing with this crisis, especially in India, our focus will shift from food for education to food relief. I have many warming stories to share with all of you. One I can just share with you. We came to know in a remote part of Assam, 3 girls. Safina was talking about educating girls, 3 girls, all 3 of them orphans. They reached out through the authorities to us, and we gave them relief. And we could see how much happy these 3 young girls were there, that they got ration for 21 days at a stretch. Very, very poor family children. And we hope they all get good relief and get educated. As far as future goes, or as you rightly have put together, Kal, Aaj or Kal, we strongly feel that one needs to prepare for very, very uncertain times. That's number one. While it is uncertain, I also would like to mention that let us not lose hope. Probably this is the best time when not-for-profits can all come together and strengthen our country further. So that's one point I want to share. Second is, please leverage internet. We have had good success with the internet, especially when it came to resource mobilization in the last 2 months. Of course, Akshaya Patra has been doing it for many years, but internet, building communities on the internet really, really helped us. We were able to communicate, raise resources. So please strengthen the internet presence. That was the second point I want to mention. We also realized that we need to work even more closer with the government and strengthen their initiative, because government is an important spearhead in this COVID relief effort. And another thing which I realize when it comes to our future is we need to redraw our budgets. Let us prepare for a worst kind of scenario and build over it. And while doing all this, deal with our people very, very compassionately, because Akshaya Patra was formed as the root value or the core value of compassion. So we want to ensure whether it is Kal, Aaj or Kal, compassion will run in Akshaya Patra all along, and will strengthen further our public-private partnership. Another thing which we want to work on is during these uncertain times, we would like to strengthen the information flow that is required for decision making, because we are dealing with one of the very, very fundamental need of a human being, for the matter children, because that's our focus. And we can't make any child go hungry, or that matter any person go hungry in Akshaya Patra. That's our endeavor, and that's the way we want to deal. And we look forward to support from our donors who have been always with us consistently, the governments, the state governments, because we cannot create any kind of impact, for that matter transformative impact, without public-private partnership coming in. Because in India, if you want to solve a problem,
Venkat, last 1 minute, please. We're running out of time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's it. That's all from my end.
That was wonderful, Venkat. Your transition from a children's organization to a food relief organization is interesting. But I hope the focus on children remains, because poor children today must be in deep difficulties without the nutritious food that you serve them. So turning now from girl child and hunger to to young adults, games, learning, and livelihoods. I'd like to introduce Matthew Spacey, the founder of Magic Bus. Matthew set up Magic Bus in 1999, which has grown from a small group of volunteers conducting informal rugby sessions and one-off outdoor camps for disadvantaged children in Mumbai to a large-scale NGO working to move millions of children and youth from highly marginalized communities out of poverty. In 2007, Matthew was awarded an MBE for services to children in the Commonwealth. Matthew has also been recognized as one of India's leading social entrepreneurs by Business Standard. The other unique thing about Matthew is that he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs, both in the social space and in the business space. His Clear Trip is probably a unicorn as much as Magic Bus is a unicorn in the social space. Over to you, Matthew, to talk about how you're going to be treating or dealing with COVID for your young adults in your program.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And again, great to share this panel, and let's hope there are many more conversations like this. And I just want to correct you, because it perhaps when you say the best entrepreneurs, I think it's probably the best financial decision. I never thought I'd say this, to leave travel and come to the development sector right now. So you can imagine the pain that that's going on there. So. But you know, I won't repeat too much of what has been said in terms of I guess some of the things, the thoughts of organisations like our own, as we inevitably are thinking about growing and scaling, and the pre-COVID days were, like Sophia in many ways, which I transitioned out from the CEO role, which spent 2 years building a team that would take our 500,000 children on this journey from childhood to livelihood, this 7-year journey out of poverty. It was, I was actually in the States when the whole of February launching our $20 million person program. So, the whole thing had been shaped literally for February 2020, and then obviously came back to this train crash. And for us, it was really a couple of things happened very fast on the day. It was some, I would say, quite disappointing behavior, but some amazing behavior as well. And some of the disappointments was some of the big partnerships that we felt would hold true were very, very quickly pulled because of different pressures given by different funds that are being raised, and so it put into question very quickly actually our financial, the viability of where we were raising our money. The second thing, of course, is we had to stop programming. So suddenly 500,000 children are told to go home, and 8,000 staff and mentors are told to stay at home as well. And that was a problem for us, because I think we spent some time trying to understand what we could do. And obviously we have a lot of trust and connect in the communities. And so I think a lot of these young people were quite frustrated because they couldn't see disease. And so they're sitting at home, being told to sit at home. And, I think, we wanted to make sure that they could go out safely, they had the right protection equipment, but also that the government permissions were there, because, in many cases it was actually just illegal to send young people out doing work. So it took us some time, I think, to do that. But I think this is the initial couple of weeks of just trying to regroup. And I think, as the executive acted very quickly at Magic Bus, and I'll just title these as headlines because I think my colleagues have already covered this. But I think one of the things we did quite well was we quickly decentralized. And I think when we didn't know the situation, we work in 21 states, and so we didn't literally know what was going on the ground. We put decisions down very quickly so that people could decide what they did locally on the ground. We also but we retained this central command. So we literally had 4 or 5 people making some of the critical decisions, so we could flow decisions through very quickly, and respond to those. And we set up a COVID response program, and I think we've done, these 60,000 meals. The idea is to get to 5 million people with a COVID relief program we've set up. And so that was became the priority for us in terms of, we have all these staff, we have all this connect, and let's understand how we can safely deploy, ration relief, medical help, behavioral change. I'm actually at the moment in rural Maharashtra, and I look out the window nearly every day, and I don't think a single person the village has ever had a day when they haven't been playing cricket or you know, or 3 of them on a motorbike. So I think, you know, the idea was to get that behavioral change out quite quickly. And then the huge communication, you know, everyone is wondering what's going on internally. You know, you have such a huge stakeholder list, and then externally. And so I think that was a massive challenge that we sort of undertook. You know, but we're not a disaster agency. There's none. I don't think any of the panelists are. And I think what probably put us all in good stead is that, you know, we're all in organizations that are quite large and growing. And to do that, you've always had to be quite agile, be able to adapt quite quickly. You know, there's quite a lot of volatility around maybe your programming, your funding. And, you know, so I think our organization is certainly very used to change. And I think we sort of set ourselves up quite well. And I think the other thing which NGOs have, I think, done very well, and I've spoken to lots of people, is we're all very mission focused. So, you know, if you can give people something to shoot at, then I feel that, you know, there's a lot of galvanizing in a tragedy like this. And I think, you know, both those issues really held us in good stead to get something brand new off the ground. I mean, we're doing stuff now that, you know, we wouldn't dream of been doing 3 months ago. So I think that was, so that's how we've been immediately responding. I think, but for me, the really interesting thing, and the sort of the last couple of minutes I wanted to spend really here is really about the next chapter. You know, I was reflecting on just what to say at this question, and it's taken, I don't know if you know, today in India, 2,500 children a day died of malnutrition under the age of 5. So that's exactly the same number of people that have died in entirety from COVID that's managed to shut our country down. So I think for me, this is such an interesting moment, because every stat perhaps that we've had in India over the last, you know, since I've been in the development sector for 20 years, indicates that we have not been doing a great job at looking after vulnerable people in this. And for me, there was whether it was a COVID crisis or something else, there was inevitably going to be social unrest. There was inevitably going to be a point where India could not take this anymore because of the numbers involved in those being disenfranchised. So what I feel quite positive about is that this emergency is quite inclusive in nature, right? So suddenly you've got a lot of normal middle-class people who are affected and cannot ignore the connect that they now have with these vulnerable communities. I mean, the city I'm from, Bombay, you know, it's so interconnected beyond the fabric we've established in the past. And I think this is one of the great optimistic moments that I think that I'm personally feeling quite positive. I think so. You know, what we're doing going forward, you know, we've just finished this very interesting, we've polled 5,000 families now across, and this report is going to be published next week, I think. But so we found some really interesting data about those living in poverty in COVID affected communities. And obviously basing a lot of our next programming based on what we're understanding. And so these are some of the headlines of some of the, so 44% of all families, income earners in families have lost their job. 54% have zero income since COVID started. 42% have had to borrow money, and 41% said they won't have enough money for the next 12 months to send their children to school. So I think, you know, these are obviously frightening statistics, and but what I think out of this will come a tremendous amount of opportunity as a sector. I think, you know, it's evident that we cannot operate in silos, and these are so multifaceted in how we need to approach the solutions, whether we're talking about food security or the immediate, you know, income insecurity, and some of the gender-based stuff that was spoken about earlier, the inability for young people to go to school. So I hope going forward that we have, I guess, a more sensible approach to how we might solve these problems together. And just the final thing I'd say is, you know, I think going forward, I think as non-profits, there are 3 million of us out there. You know, we need to be we need to collaborate, perhaps even reframe some of the equations that we have now with government and our funders. I think it's a great opportunity to go and talk to other organizations about areas that, you know, there's lots of stuff going on there now in some of the problems that we don't know how to deal with, and we'll need to partner with people to do that, to solve those issues. So I think in there lies a tremendous amount of opportunity. We need to be nimble, we need to be mobile and able to respond very quickly. I also think everyone needs to have a quick vision check and mission check. I think all of the audience here who have NGOs are, I would imagine vision is a bit more simple, but now everything's got to be delivered quite differently. And I think that will be a really important, to have an honest discussion about why do we exist, and to really assess whether we are relevant now as an organization. So, and I, as a founder, and all of us are founders, and we're all very attached to, and I think what this has made me feel about personally is that, because you suddenly see someone taking a straw out of your 20 years of work, the life is going out of it and the money's going and changing, and it's obviously very difficult to cope with that. But I think it's really made me take a step back and think, yes, I hope Magic Bus is around. I think it will be, but many nonprofits won't be around. But I feel that, no one can take away the work that we've done collectively. And I think, as an industry, we'll all align ourselves to new missions, new passions, new impact, because that's the sort of people we are. And so a new chapter begins. So I think I'm actually feeling quite positive about what will come out of this. I think a big break had to happen. And so I think good things will come. I'm feeling fairly positive now.
Thank you, Matthew. The frightening statistics that you gave really shocked all of us, I'm sure. But on the positive note, you came out saying that revisiting the mission, collaboration, reorganizations will probably get us out of this mess. Let's hope you're right, and let's hope that at least all the large NGOs survive and grow and solve the problems that need to be solved. I'm not saying that small NGOs should not survive, they should survive and thrive. But these learnings for them are critically important.
Yeah.
Turning now to the grand young man of the Indian social sector, Madhav Chauhan. Madhav is the man who introduced me to the social space. So I hold him in special high regard, and that's why I kept him last for this session. Madhav is the co-founder of Pratham, one of India's largest NGOs. When I joined Pratham was a purely urban NGO. Today, they probably operate in over 300,000 villages across the country and would be the largest rural organization in this country. Madhav started the Read India campaign somewhere around 2006-07. He started ASAR, which has become the biggest advocacy tool for the education sector in this country. Has been awarded and recognized with is a Skoll Foundation Award winner, a Wise Award winner, a Yadan Prize Award winner, and multiple prizes that he has won. So Madhav, I'd like you to talk about the future of learning and the future of skills, the two areas that you've been focusing on for the last few years. Over to you, Madhav.
I thought you want me to talk about Kal, Aaj and Kal.
Yes, the Kal, Aaj and Kal, but with some slides towards.
They say, watch what you wish for because it might come true. 5-6 years ago, I started debating our own motto, which is every child in school and learning. And I kept asking my colleagues, sometimes in private meetings and sometimes in public meetings also, because the lack of learning was not improving, no matter what we did. We've been at it now since a long time. And I said, what about if we change our motto to every child, not in school, but learning well? And here we are, not a single child is in school, and the situation is not all that good. I also used to say, and I still maintain it, that our schools are also, schools world over, are not just learning places, or maybe they're less of learning places, but more of daycare centers which are needed. I think parents also have realized that without this daycare center, home can be a difficult place. Anyways, as you know, Pratham is a bunch of organizations. It's not just one organization. We have an education program with several educational programs within it. We have the annual status of education report. We have a Pratham Council for Vulnerable Children. We have the vocational training program. And all these programs together were working just fine. 2 years ago, we started visualizing what Pratham 2.0 would be and went through an exercise. And what it said was, look, we need to integrate all our efforts and not work in silos. It said we need to digitize and we need to focus on communities and how to build the community work. All this was there and we were preparing. We had made good strides in digital experimentation. And in a ways, we were kind of ready when this COVID business struck. And the first response, I think around 15th of March, was to tell everybody. Our CEO, Rukmini Banerjee, sent out a message to all the people. We have got something like 6,500, 7,000 full-time employees. They were told to either stay where they were or to go back home and stay there and wait for further instructions. And immediately, like Matthew said and Safina said, the decision to pay people end of March. Not only that, the board of Pratham was convened and our CEO took a lead in taking a decision that all Pratham people, none of them would be fired, and for 3 months they would be paid, at least till the end of June, they would be paid full salaries, and the board backed it up. So that was a very major decision to take. And once that was taken, we started looking at, while this was going on, not after it was taken, people had started working in their own way and trying to figure out what to do. There were phone calls being made because our work involves people being directly in contact with the communities. And now the Pratham staff could not go to the communities. So what do you do? So we started connecting on phones. And then we started using, we have a big repository of videos and digital games and so on, which was being sent to children to help them learn and so on. We tried to see what was possible. While once on the one side, governments were trying to see how do you continue learning for the children? Because the schools were closed, people felt that learning should continue. We took a slightly different approach, saying that it's not really the learning part, learning in the schoolies sense, but it should be, so the program we launched is called Corona Thodi Si Masti Thodi Si Padhai. So, and that is a way to send messages so that children can learn, and then they can be followed up on phones with parents and so on. The massive organization that we've built on the ground with the community participation, volunteers, young volunteers and parents and so on, that came in handy because making contact was easier. There were phone numbers, we started calling, and we started working that learning example. One program that was launched was called Angan Shala, where 3-4 children could come together and start learning. But soon we found out that even that was not possible because people started taking social distancing very seriously, and kids started saying, we can't visit each other, we are going to stay at home. So the next challenge started. Anyway, so the whole idea of innovation started working. I remember, since you called me the grand old man or whatever,
I called you the grand young man.
Whatever, and I saw that tongue in cheek. So I had worked in 1989 on radio programs and television programs for adult education, and so we innovated in Maharashtra in the Nagpur division, and there is a radio program which is sort of run in coordination with the ground level SMS messaging system. So sending WhatsApp messages is okay. But as somebody said, 40% or more people on the ground do not have access to Android phones. And many children do not get to use their father's phones and so on. So we started looking at SMS as a possibility. Now, all this is still trying to fix the car as it's running. And we are experimenting. We are trying to learn. And out of this will come what we need to do next. So I think one factor that I would like to stress is, and as something that my young colleague pointed out just a couple of hours ago, is that let's not assume that everything that was there is going to be destroyed. That won't happen. And don't think that everything that people are wishing for, the good things that we are wishing for are going to come true, unless you try hard. The future, the way it looks, is quite uncertain. Let's accept that it's uncertain, and let's be on the top of the situation and watch how it grows. There's a great deal of resilience in the population. People want to do something. It's not going to be completely an unconditional destruction of things. I think people know how to get together. I feel, and I think my organization feels the same way, building small communities is going to be very important. Recovering out of this crisis, whether it is called, so going to school, the schools were switched off from the center or from the state capital. But switching on is, you cannot throw a switch and get everybody in, because parents are going to be not sure whether they should send their children. There's going to be a lot of problems. Private schools trying to send their children, so bring their children in private school buses, and there's going to be a huge number of problems. It's not going to be that easy. Building confidence. Let's say if we are going to talk about villages, then building confidence in the school. How do you do that? How do you know that the school is sanitized? How do you know that my child is going to be safe? So we'll have to start reworking how the school operates, and there, the participation, the thing that everybody had been talking about, people's participation in running a school. I think this is the time when that's going to be critical and crucial. Parents, school management committees, which are sort of thrown out, all these people will have to come in and start looking, building the confidence that is there. One of the things that happens is when there is a crisis, people start mobilizing resources, like it happened in Mumbai. The Municipal Corporation of Mumbai reached out to my co-founder, Farida Lambe, who's really the real grand young person in this whole business, and said, can you help us work out, mobilize food and so on. So they worked on it with volunteers in spite of COVID. Now, even today, working in the communities and distributing lunches and food packets and so on. Some 18,000 families served food packets, and more than 1.5 million lunches served and so on. So all this was done in the spirit of the community. I think this is something that happens when people start coming together. I think that is happening now. Already, I think people realize that we cannot be afraid of COVID and worry all the time. You have to deal with this. The question is, how are we going to do that? And it can't be done entirely by the government, because there's only so much that can be done. The government has to build confidence that systems can be improved, our hospitals, healthcare system. And at the same time, I think in systems like schools and so on, rebuilding and making it better. So now we are saying that we should be looking at a new motto: every child back in school again and learning better for life and livelihood. That's where we are headed tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhav. Back to communities, new innovations, new schools, typical of you, always solving newer problems creatively. Thank you for that, Madhav. We're fast running out of time, and I've been warned by my boss, the anchor sitting behind, that I have time only for 2 questions. The first question is from a gentleman called Arun Agarwal. Education has been widely affected during COVID. My question is, those who are privileged would somehow manage their ward education, but first generation learner in government schools, what will happen to their education and future impact of on the country, where public education is worst in the world? Madhav, can you answer that question?
Like I said, it's uncertain. Let's not assume that it will all go wrong. The fear is that the underprivileged and the poor will suffer the most. But I think there will be a tendency to sort of come together. That's why we are here. We're all going to come together and see how this can be improved. I was actually surprised by the quickness with which the government also responded to the crisis and got together. There was no time to think. People started putting out television programs. They started going out and reaching, on the Diksha platform, there's a lot of material that was sent out, pumped literally into the communities. And everybody admits that we don't know what the impact is, but at least it's going out there. I think people did rally around and said, let's do something about it. I think that spirit is going to prevail. It's true that the more privileged will be able to teach their children better. But the funny part is, I think the school system as it is not really helpful in building livelihood for 70% of the population. Think about it. Call me cynical for that. But now the question is, people will have to build and try to think, what kind of education does my child need? How can I build? No, the people who are not going to come back to the cities for jobs, what kind of education do they need? I think we are going to reinvent some things and we are going to start building new things. Just today we were talking about how continuing education is going to be seriously important, because learning, relearning for young people, it's not just talking about new jobs in the IT sector. It's about, I'm working on something today, tomorrow my job could be completely different, and we are not even talking about IT. So I think we'll have to believe in people's ability to come out of crisis fighting.
When do you see schools opening, Mother? Reopening?
I don't. Not right now. I think that should start happening. I think people will start pushing for it. But I suspect the monsoon season is also the agricultural season. In urban areas, there's going to be fear. Rural areas, there's still going to be a lot of agricultural work being done. So, and I don't think people should be in a hurry to open schools for the so-called education. I call it so-called education. I think schools should be open because children need their social experience. Okay, I grant you some learning is really needed, and so getting back to school is important. I don't think it's going to happen in a hurry.
Okay, thank you. The second and last question, I'm told, I'll send this to Safina. 2 positive things that which we can expect in the COVID normalized world. Safina, are you there? I think we've lost Safina.
No, hi, Ujjwal.
Hi.
Sorry, I missed a little bit of the question.
The question is,
could you just repeat that?
2 positive things which we can expect in the COVID normalized world. Lakshman Joshi is asking this question.
The 2 positive things in the COVID normalized world?
Yeah.
I think you can't be a social entrepreneur without being an eternal optimist. And I believe somewhere that this crisis will hopefully help us come to closer gender equity. Just to remind people, the biggest driver for gender equity in the world was the 2 world wars, because women actually came out of the homes, they were needed as nurses, they were, and washing machines came out, and there was free time for them to do things. So even the most unexpected crises can possibly work in favor of women and girls. And I really hope that they will now, but that will only happen if our fiscal stimulus, if all of our policies have a strong gender lens. And I think that's what we all have to ask for, because being gender neutral is being gender blind. But I think if we raise the voice enough and we can get to more inclusive policies, that could actually really, really impact and put us on a path to greater equity.
Thank you, Safina. And thank you everybody for joining this wonderful session. I feel more positive today at the end of this 1 hour than I was feeling at the beginning, after hearing these 4 people talk about the plans to rehabilitate the world in the post-COVID world. Thank you, guys, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ujjwal.
Thank you.
And thanks to all our panelists for sharing their experiences. Many people will be looking to your organizations to set the tone as we navigate the future. So thank you so much. There have been a ton of questions that popped up. We unfortunately did not have time to address all of them on the session. We will collate the questions and see if we can respond to our audience, and we'll share them with the panelists as well. So thank you, Ujjwal, Safina, Madhav, Matthew, and Sridhar. Thank you so much. On to the second part of this plenary.
Thank you.
We've all had a lot of food for thought over the day, and I'm sure given that it's Friday evening, we could all do with some unwinding. Of course, in our respective homes and on Zoom. We're now joined by Ricky Cage, composer, music producer, and environmentalist. Ricky is an award winner for his album Wings of Samsara. Another of his albums debuted at #1 on the US Billboard in 2014, a first for a person of Indian origin, and may I say, for someone from Bangalore. In addition to his identity as a musician, Ricky is passionate about environmental issues. He was named a UNCCD Land Ambassador and also serves as UNICEF India Celebrity Supporter. He's also an ambassador for the Earth Day Network. Welcome to Charcha 2020, Ricky.
Thank you so much. Really honored to be here.
We're going to end the day with a concert by Ricky. But before we get to the concert, Ricky, I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I mean, two different identities, a musician and an environmentalist. How do you bring your two identities together, and how does one influence the other?
Actually, to be honest, I look at it as just one identity because even though it's musician, environmentalist, for me, music and the environment is one and the same, because at the end of the day, how did music start? Music started off as sounds from within nature, sounds of the birds, sounds of the trees, sounds of the river, sounds of the rain. And it's only for the last couple of 100 years that music has become academic with notes and scales. Otherwise, music has always been, trying to imitate the sounds of nature and making it more and more pleasing for the human ear. So that's what. So I've just returned back to the roots of music as an art form, and I create music only on the environment, and that's why you'll never see me doing Bollywood music or film music or popular music. The only kind of music that I make is about the environment and sustainability around that.
Awesome. And just in light of that, how have you as an artist reacted to the COVID crisis? I mean, how has that influenced you, inspired you?
Of course, it's been quite shocking for all of us, to say in the least, because I'm used to traveling around the world and performing my music to audiences, because I love performing to live audiences and seeing their reactions and things like that. And in fact, due to the COVID crisis, I've had 14 concerts canceled in 6 countries, and even more are going to be canceled in July, August, obviously. So yeah, so I've moved to doing concerts online, and it's fun doing concerts online because the logistical nightmares of flying down people is not there, and collaborating with a musician who lives 2 houses down the road from me is the exact same as collaborating with a musician in New York or in Senegal or in South Africa, because everything's online. So pretty much the world is my playground right now, and I'm trying to collaborate with as many musicians around the world who feel as strongly about the environment and about climate action as me. So it's a new way, it's a new lifestyle, it's a new way to express ourselves, and we are just rising up to the occasion.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ricky, your thoughts on Charcha 2020, just given your attachment to developmental issues. What are your thoughts? Have you had a chance to catch some of our sessions? Would love to.
Yeah, I did have a chance to catch some of the sessions, and also I went through all the speaker profiles in detail. A lot of the speakers are friends of mine and people who I've collaborated with in the past. So it's amazing. At the end of the day, it's just if you look at it at the bottom line, it's just wonderful people from across India, doing wonderful work in multiple ways, and and trying to make a country and thereof the world a better place for everyone and everything. So what better than this? And that's why I said in the beginning that it's an absolute honor for me to actually be part of the show, because this is what I'm all about, communicating. So I've gotten a lot of fodder for my communication through music through this particular sessions, and you'll see a lot of the points that I heard from all these wonderful speakers in my music in the next few months.
No, it's our pleasure to have you here, and we will really look forward to more music. But while we wait for that, I know you have something special lined up for us today. So over to you to introduce what we're about to experience and to the broadcast.
Yeah, so it's going to be a concert. It's a pre-recorded concert of me collaborating with musicians around the world, from Senegal, from South Africa, from USA, India, Australia. And the link I'm being told is bit.ly/Ricky Cage. And watch it live over there, bit.ly/Ricky Cage. And it's a YouTube link, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm certainly looking forward to it, Ricky. And with that, we're going to sign off today's formal session. But I would invite all of you to join us for the concert at the link that's visible on your screens right now. It's also up on the chat windows. And we will say good night to all of you here and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Good night, and please enjoy the show.
Good night.
I see we have a few more participants left in the room. Just to call out, if you would like to watch the preview to Ricky's new concert, please go to the bit.ly link that is on the screen right now, bit.ly/Ricky Gage. Thank you, everyone. Good night.